Okay, guys, this is gonna be a rant video, a different format completely from what we're used to. I've seen a lot of reviews coming out because there's a lot of games, it's the end of the year, especially since three games dropped today. I've seen a lot of reviews on Twitter, right? Whether it's a big company like IGN or Metacritic or something like that, or if you have smaller independent YouTubers or groups reviewing games, everybody uses a different score. And so as you can see, I have my scoring system pulled up here, and I'll get into explaining this here in a minute. This is very just a janky, took me 15 minutes in Photoshop to make type thing, but let me talk about it, okay? So, a lot of the Callisto Project reviews, okay, let me get my mouse over here, have been coming in, and they're all negative. They all say really bad things. My game's installing right now, so we'll get to the actual review in a couple of days. But they all say really negative things, not a single good thing, and they put it at a 7. That's not how this works. The numbers have to have ratings and they have to have meanings because you can't give something a 5 and say it's bad and then give something a 7 and say it's average. I've seen so many 7s that say average. And I even saw a scale that had a rating system with 7 as average. That's not how this works. If 7 is average, then 14 is your 10 out of 10. That's just average is half. So, let me go through and break this down. You got 1 through 10. 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. Everything below 5 is bad. Everything above 5 is good. So, 5, let's start in the middle. If 5 is average, this is where most of your games should fall. Like Call of Duty World War II, no microtransactions, average. You put microtransactions in it, then it moves down, right? Take another one, for example. I just did Need for Speed, right? Need for Speed, if, again, I just did this video. With faster pacing and more arcadey feel like it's supposed to, it would have gone up here. But because the pacing's so bad, it came down to average, right? That's how ratings work. You can start wherever you want. You can start at a 10 and take points. You can start at a 1 and give points. I start in the middle. The game starts at a 5. It's average, just like every other game. Does it look good? 6. Does the mechanics good? 7. Is the story good? 8. Right? And then so on and so forth. Same thing the other way. It's buggy. It didn't work on launch. Microtransactions. It's boring. It's short. Blah, blah, blah. Now, technically, I could give negative points to some games, but I don't do that. It's a lot harder to move out here. So, again, this is just some of my rules. Now we're getting into things that I do. I also thought it would be a good idea just to have a scale on the channel. So, from this 3 to 7 range, it's pretty easy to move, right? Like, a good sequence will move you from a 6 to a 7, or a bad sequence will move you from a 4 to a 3. But once you get to this 8, 9, 10, or a 1 and 2, game's gotta be real bad to be down here. The game's gonna be really good to work up here, right? And so let me go into this further. So, your average, this is where most games should be, because, it's the average. Most games should fall in this range right here, 4, 5, 6, right? If it's average, it's fine. It does what it needs to do. Average, 5. If it's a little bit above average, right? It does what it needs to do, and maybe it had one cool sequence or two. Above average. Good. This is where games that you're going to remember sit, right? For example, it's December, it's the end of the year. I'm making my best and most disappointing games of the year video. Anything below 7, I'm not going to remember for this list. You should remember 7 and up. You should remember those games. You should be able to tell me whether it's a multiplayer game or a single player game, the story, the characters, what the central gameplay loop is, some plot points, stuff like that, right? So that's where you sit at 7. 8, if it's 8 plus, these should be some of your favorite games ever, right? Like, the only things that go up here for me are like the Black Ops 1s, the Black Ops 2s, Modern Warfare 3, God of War. Those big, really, great games, and that's why you have very good and great up here. I'm trying to describe a list without using the words on the list. And so this is hard to get, right? Because the 7 and 8, the difference here is huge. This is something that typically at a 7, I felt I paid my $75 for the game. It was worth my money. It was good. This is something that I'm going to remember. It's one of my favorite games ever. And then so on and so forth. 9, it's almost perfect. Like, whatever your favorite game is, let's say, everything about it you like, but it didn't work on launch. Or it has microtransactions. That's when you sit at a 9. And then a 10 is pretty much a 9, but just a tiny bit better. Because I had this as perfect, but that doesn't exist. There aren't perfect games. So this is just a great game, a fantastic game. It's one of your favorite games, if not your favorite game. But it's just got that little bit extra. I don't think I've ever even given a game a 10 before. I don't think I have. I know I've given 9s, but I definitely haven't given 10s. I think I gave Halo 5. No, not Halo 5, Halo Infinite. I think I gave it a 9. The story, not the multiplayer. I think. I don't remember. This is why we have recap videos. Okay, let's go the other way. Below average, right? Your expectations were here. It didn't meet them. Now, this is where things get kind of confusing. Because your expectations could be at a 1. Like, you could expect it to be trash, and then it is trash. So it kind of met your expectations, but you get the main point. If you were expecting a decent game, and it's not, this is where you put it, right? I'm talking it's boring, or it's a bit too long, or a bit too short, or like it feels clunky, stuff like that. This is where you sit with below average. Bad. This is where you sit with games that are bad. No, I'm joking. So with 3s, I like 3s. 3 is a good score because 4 is like, it could have been okay if they just fixed these few things. 3 is like, it's the upper scale of what the hell are they doing, right? That's 1, 2, and 3. 3, it's a good number. It's a solid number, right? Because they clearly didn't know what they were doing. Something's broken or it's buggy. That's typically what makes games go down here. Or just it's boring or way too long or the story is not compelling or it looks like shit. These are your 3s, right? I don't think again, your average range should be 4, 5, and 6. And I feel like I typically give 4 to 7 is where my range is, right? I feel like I don't typically go down here and I don't typically go up here. But just for reference, let's go down to 2. So for a game to get a 2, it's got to be real bad, right? It's bad, right? Like you feel like you've wasted your money, especially at $75 at this point. It doesn't work. It didn't work for the first few days. It's buggy as hell. Bunch of microtransactions, boring, way too long. All of that good stuff. That's your 2s. And then the 1s should be inverses of 10s. You shouldn't be out here giving 1s, right? 1s are trash. Like, you paid $70 for the game and it doesn't launch. That's a 1. Like, I don't do 0s, but, like, the game doesn't work. It's trash. Like, these are your 1s. Okay? So that's your 1 to 10 scale. Hope that sums everything up. We can't be going out here giving games that are completely negative reviews and giving them like a 7. If you have nothing good to say, it has to be below here. That's how a scale works. But just wanted to clarify some things for people out there. But this is my rant about ratings.